Ancient Egypt, often referred to as the gift of the Nile, represents one of the most enduring and influential civilizations in human history. For over 3 millennia, Egyptian society flourished along the banks of the Nile River, creating monumental architecture, sophisticated religious systems, and a centralized government that became a model for future civilizations. The Nile River was more than just a body of water. It was the lifeblood of Egypt. Its annual flooding provided fertile silt that allowed for the cultivation of wheat, barley, and flax, essential for feeding the population and supporting trade. The river also served as a natural highway, facilitating the movement of goods, armies, and ideas. Egyptian society revolved around the pharaoh, considered a living god, who maintained Mat, the divine order of the universe. This ideology justified the pharaoh's absolute authority and served as the foundation for political, social, and religious life. Temples, monuments, and administrative records all reinforced this authority, symbolizing the unity and strength of the civilization. Despite this apparent stability, Egypt faced numerous internal and external challenges. Over time, political mismanagement, economic strain, environmental fluctuations, social inequality, and foreign invasions gradually undermined the empire's strength. Understanding why ancient Egypt collapsed requires examining the interplay between these factors across multiple periods. The Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, and the Late Period. Only by tracing the cumulative pressures can we appreciate how such a powerful civilization ultimately lost its independence. Egypt's political system was highly centralized, with the pharaoh as the ultimate authority over land, resources, and the population. During the Old Kingdom c. 268–62181 BCE, strong pharaohs like Djoser, Khufu, and Sneferu established monumental architecture, including the Step Pyramid and the Great Pyramid of Giza. These constructions demonstrated the organizational power of the state and reinforced the pharaoh's authority. Yet political instability emerged early. Succession disputes often led to conflict between royal family members. Weak or inexperienced rulers sometimes failed to maintain control over distant provinces, allowing local governors, called nomarchs, to act autonomously. The First Intermediate Period, c. 2181 to 2055 BCE, illustrates the consequences of political fragmentation. Central authority collapsed, leading to rival dynasties in Upper and Lower Egypt. During this time, local rulers consolidated power, often ignoring directives from the nominal pharaoh. The disruption of centralized governance weakened the state's ability to collect taxes, maintain infrastructure, and defend against external threats. The Middle Kingdom c. 2055 to 1650 BCE restored stability under pharaohs like Mentuhotep II, who reasserted control over nomarchs. Administrative reforms strengthened the central bureaucracy, and Egypt experienced a period of economic prosperity. However, the pattern of instability persisted. Reliance on strong individual rulers made Egypt vulnerable during periods of weak leadership. Political instability was not confined to domestic issues. Diplomatic relations with neighboring civilizations, including Nubia and the Levant, required constant negotiation and military readiness. When pharaohs failed to maintain these relations, Egypt risked both economic disruption and territorial loss. Ultimately, political instability created vulnerabilities that would interact with other stresses: economic, environmental, social, to contribute to Egypt's eventual decline. The Nile River's annual flood was critical to Egypt's agricultural system. Fertile soil deposited along the floodplain allowed farmers to grow staples, such as wheat, barley, and flax. Agricultural surplus supported urban populations, funded monumental construction projects, and enabled trade. However, environmental fluctuations sometimes disrupted this delicate balance. Periods of low flooding led to crop failures, food shortages, and famine. Historical records and archaeological evidence suggest that famines occurred repeatedly, causing social unrest and undermining the pharaoh's legitimacy. Large-scale construction projects, while symbolizing the pharaoh's power, imposed heavy economic burdens. The building of pyramids, temples, and tombs required enormous resources: labor, timber, stone, and metals. These projects often drew labor away from farming, exacerbating food shortages during poor harvests. Trade was another pillar of Egypt's economy. Egypt relied on imports for timber from Lebanon, gold from Nubia, copper from Sinai, and luxury goods from the Mediterranean. Trade networks also enabled the export of grain, linen, and papyrus. Invasions, piracy, or political instability along these routes disrupted commerce, reducing wealth and access to essential resources. Inflation, heavy taxation, and resource mismanagement further strained the economy. Provinces could resist tax collection, and corruption among officials reduced the efficiency of resource distribution. Over time, these economic challenges diminished the state's ability to fund military campaigns, maintain infrastructure, and respond to crises. Cumulatively, economic hardship weakened both the pharaoh's authority and the population's loyalty. Without sufficient resources, Egypt struggled to maintain its political, social, and military structures. Egypt's geographic location made it a crossroads for trade and cultural exchange, but also exposed it to repeated invasions. Nubians from the south and Libyans from the west frequently raided Egypt's borders. The mysterious Sea Peoples during the Late Bronze Age c. 1200 BCE destroyed cities and disrupted trade networks, highlighting Egypt's vulnerability. The New Kingdom c. 1552–1070 BCE saw Egypt at its territorial peak, controlling lands from Nubia to the Levant. Military campaigns under pharaohs like Thutmose III and Ramses II secured borders and expanded influence. However, maintaining these territories required continuous military expenditure and administrative oversight, which strained the state. During the late period c. 664–332 BCE, Egypt faced increasingly powerful foreign powers. Assyrians and Persians conquered Egypt, instituting foreign administration and reducing pharaonic authority. Native dynasties occasionally regained brief periods of autonomy, but these were often short. The conquest by Alexander the Great in 332 BCE marked a turning point. Egypt became part of the Hellenistic world under the Ptolemaic dynasty, ending native pharaonic rule. Later, Roman annexation in 30 BCE solidified Egypt's status as a province of a foreign empire. Repeated invasions eroded Egypt's sovereignty, disrupted trade, and introduced foreign administrative systems. Over centuries, the cumulative effect of these threats undermined Egypt's ability to maintain a cohesive, independent state. The Nile's health was central to Egypt's survival. Climate fluctuations occasionally caused prolonged droughts, reducing flooding and leading to crop failures. Archaeological and paleoclimatic evidence indicates that periods of low inundation correlated with social unrest, political instability, and famine. Soil degradation due to intensive farming and irrigation practices further weakened agriculture. Salinization and desertification reduced arable land, limiting the production necessary to sustain Egypt's population. Environmental pressures amplified other challenges. During droughts, the state faced increased social tension, rebellion, and reduced economic output. Environmental stress made Egypt more susceptible to invasions and weakened the pharaoh's capacity to maintain authority. In some cases, environmental crises coincided with political instability, creating compounded effects. For example, the First Intermediate Period was exacerbated by both weak leadership and low Nile floods, leading to widespread famine and social fragmentation. Egyptian society was highly stratified, with the pharaoh, priests, and elites at the top, and farmers, laborers, and slaves forming the majority. Social inequality created tensions, particularly during periods of famine, taxation, or forced labor. Religious shifts also affected cohesion. Although Egyptian religion was resilient, changes in priestly power, the adoption of foreign deities, or the introduction of new cults sometimes challenged traditional authority. Temples held significant economic and political power, and conflicts within religious institutions could destabilize governance. Cultural pressures, including the burden of maintaining monumental constructions, performing complex religious rituals, and managing the expectations of foreign powers, further strained society. These social and cultural factors, combined with political and economic stress, reduced loyalty to the state and weakened internal cohesion. The collapse of ancient Egypt was not caused by a single event, but by the cumulative effect of multiple pressures over centuries. Political instability, economic hardship, environmental stress, social inequality, and foreign invasions interacted in complex ways. By the late period, Egypt could no longer defend its borders effectively, manage resources efficiently, or maintain social unity. Temporary revivals under strong pharaohs were insufficient to counteract structural weaknesses. Foreign domination, beginning with the Persians, followed by Alexander the Great and later the Romans, marked the definitive end of Egypt as an independent civilization. Native pharaonic authority, once central to Egyptian identity, ceased to exist. The story of Egypt's collapse demonstrates that even the most enduring civilizations are vulnerable when multiple stressors converge. Political, economic, social, and environmental pressures can interact in ways that make decline inevitable, regardless of past achievements. Despite its collapse, ancient Egypt's cultural and technological achievements endure. Monuments, hieroglyphic writing, medical knowledge, and architectural innovations continue to inspire the world. The fall of Egypt provides lessons about the fragility of civilizations. Centralized power without resilience, dependence on a single environmental resource, social inequality, and exposure to external threats can lead to decline. Yet, cultural achievements can outlast political collapse, influencing subsequent societies for millennia. Egypt's history reminds us that greatness is not permanent, but human ingenuity, creativity, and cultural legacy can persist even after political structures fail. Understanding its collapse helps us appreciate the complex factors that sustain or undermine civilizations over time.